Hey, welcome to the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast, the place where you get straightforward, no nonsense, no holds barred leadership thoughts. We want to talk about growth, both personally and professionally. The Bald Truth Leadership Podcast is brought to you by the Peak Performance Group. I'm your host, Coach Rick Colster, certified executive business coach and the chief coaching officer of the Peak Performance Group, where we help people and organizations align and maximize their potential. And talking about alignment and maximizing potential, folks, today's guest, this is the guy that can align and maximize your potential as well. And he's doing it for one of the best teams in the NBA right now, the Philadelphia 76ers. So our guest today, he's got a long and distinguished career serving our country. In fact, he comes from a family that has service at its core: teachers, military officers, police officers, nurses, and more. Over his 30 years in the Navy, he's built and led 7 different startup organizations in the special operations community. Now, I mentioned the special operations community because he is the real deal. This is a SEAL. This is the commander of the SEALs, ladies and gentlemen. And when I think of this man, when I think of Rob, I think of leadership first. That's the phrase that comes to mind when I think about him. Always keeping his eyes on the finish line while looking at what's best for the team as a whole is what his drive is. There's more, but I'll let him share his thoughts with us as we go. I'm excited to get the chance to pick the brain of a real leader in all the sense of the word. The Big Bald Truth welcome to Captain Rob Newson. Rob, welcome to the Bald Truth.
Thanks, Rick. Pleasure to be with you.
Oh, it's awesome. Where do we start? I mean, you've got such a long, varied career, and now you're starting a second career now with the 76ers.
Yeah, it's an amazing journey.
What a great opportunity. So let's jump in here. Okay, I don't know where to start because people that listen to the podcast and know me know that I have a heart for our military community, a big heart. I mean, I love you guys. I love what you've done. I love you for your service. But there's got to be a lot of funny things that happened over your 30 years. What would you say is the funniest thing that ever happened right before a mission?
Yeah, it's funny. My better half gets onto me because when I tell funny stories about the teams, it's usually about me being screwed up in some way. She's like, "Hey, you got to stop telling those stories. It really hurts your image."
Well, you know, sometimes it's vulnerability. Leadership, one of the things that I believe is that a real leader has vulnerability, humility. Matter of fact, I talked about it this morning in my men's group. What is leadership? And vulnerability really came out there. So being able to be humble about what you've done, but also laugh at yourself sometimes is important. So,
oh no, I agree. I think vulnerability is one of the key strengths of a leader who's hitting top form.
Yeah, exactly. So you've helped to build and create strategies. I mean, and strategy is one of those things that a lot of people don't really get. I'm just bottom line going to say, because this is the bald truth. They don't understand strategy. We understand tactics. We know how to get things done, but you really focus on strategy for multiple facets of a special operations group, specifically SEAL teams. 2 things come to mind here. First, these are the elite, the best of the best. How hard was it to corral and lead these guys? And second, strategy. Again, like I said, tactics are generally what rules the operator's world, right? They get in, they get the job done. How do you get them to think and look at missions more strategically?
Yeah, I think there's 2 parts to that. You know, as when I was an 05 commander, I was leading a combat support element, and we trained and developed a world-class targeting engine for the SEAL teams. And so we would assign these to deploying SEAL teams, and I'd watch my buddies as SEAL team COs who were getting ready to go forward. And I really learned from them the art of translating strategy down to tactics, right? So, the SEALs are going to get the mission done, and they're going to get after it, and they're going to perform at the tactical level like nobody else. That's what they do. And the best leaders that I've watched over the years had an ability and a focus on translating what it meant, what each mission meant to the broader picture, and painting a picture and a vision of what we were doing in combat on the battlefield to the objectives of the nation, right? And so whether it's a SEAL 05 commander or SEAL 06 Gesotive commander or an Army Green Beret Gesotive commander or General Petraeus or, McCraven or a Crystal, what they had the capacity to do, because they focused on it, was to make the strategy personal, right? I mean, I'm reminded of when Kennedy visited NASA and he ran into a janitor and he said, "What do you do?" And the guy said, "I'm helping put a man on the moon," right? Yeah, so that strategy boils down. So it wasn't just, the mission is to kill or capture this terrorist. We understood that we were dismantling terrorist networks on a global scale to make America safe, right? To take the fight to them. So that's the key is just the translation. Strategy is one thing if it's on if it's on the shelf and you've got a nice book to point to that says this is my strategy. It's meaningless until the people on the ground, on the edge of the organization, realize that what they're doing affects the strategy.
Okay, that's great. So now we want to translate this back to the private sector, or public or private sector, like where we're at right now in the business world. So for a business owner, someone who might be listening to this, trying to get some ideas, how do we translate that strategy? You look at it from a military perspective, but take that company strategy, that vision, rid the world of all terrorists, right? Kind of that's a big picture strategy. How do you relate that back down to the janitor?
Right.
Putting a man on the moon.
Right.
How do you communicate that?
Well, so it's about teams, leadership, and culture, right? And so you don't translate getting to the moon down to the janitor level unless you have a culture that is focused on everyone getting buy-in and feeling like they're a part of the effort. And so, I'm a big believer in being very explicit about what kind of culture you're trying to foster, about how that culture contributes to the mission and the strategy and the tactics every day, right? You can have values that you believe in, and you can have values that are in execution. One is much harder than the other, right?
Sure, absolutely.
A lot of people have beliefs. Not a lot of people put their beliefs into action. And to me, that's having a culture that does that is the linkage between strategy and tactics.
Okay, makes sense. Because at the Peak Performance Group, we run a program we've got a big program called the Emerging Leaders Academy. And what we do is we take young leaders, those 25 to 40, the millennial generation, if you want to label it, and look to them to kind of nurture them, mentor them into their next role, and prepare them to take that next role. And one of the pieces we talk about is vision and values.
Yeah.
How do you, and translating that back to their, it's the construction industry is a big piece of my business. So how do you translate that to the driver of the dump truck or the cement truck? Right?
Yeah.
How do you translate that down, that big picture thing? So that's important. I see how that's important. And I think having values is one of those key things, and making sure that they're clear. And like you said, not just having them, but living them and putting them in action at all times.
Yeah. One of the things I return to everywhere I go is I have this belief that you have to review your values on a recurring basis, right? Mm-hmm. Culture and values can be implicit. They're embedded in everything you do. But if you don't revisit them on a daily basis, then when you make decisions, that's not going to be muscle memory to revert back to your values.
Oh,
and
that's great.
I've seen so many people who are good, honest, strong people, smart leaders who in the heat of a moment made a decision that betrayed their values. And if you ask them, that they would admit that failure, and they would be, they would say, "That's not me. I don't know what happened." My belief is what happened is those values weren't front and foremost in the top of their mind as they went about their day. So I was talking to a group of emergency medicine residents in New York, just as they're going through their residency, and they're thrown into the worst pandemic in 100 years.
Oh,
And
yes, yeah.
they asked about making hard decisions, right? They have to make life and death decisions when people were stacked up like cordwood in the hallways. Who were they going to treat? And that's just an awful position to be in. And the way you make those decisions is to revisit your values every morning before you start your day.
Okay. And that's good. To have them posted, have them listed. I mean, I keep mine literally on the cork board in front of my desk. I stand, it's right in front of me. It's look at my values every day. It's just there.
Yeah.
And
think about it.
Yeah. I don't have to think about it, but they're there. And it's just one of the things you look up and you go, oh, yeah, that's them. Boom. And that's where we get it. And this is 15 years of having those values, but looking at them every single day. I don't have to recite them. I don't have to stand up and go, oh, this and this and this and this. But just knowing they're there, and it's that recognition. I think you called it right, muscle memory. But it's brain muscle.
You have to know what matters.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I love it. So, okay, I mentioned in your intro, you've got a lot of stuff that you've done over your career. I mean, 30 years in the Navy, working with teams, and now you're working for one of the best teams in Philadelphia, the 76ers. Now,
great organization.
I'm going to caveat that because I'm from Jersey, and I'm a Giants fan. So that's why I said one of the best teams in Philadelphia, because the Eagles weren't getting anywhere near the best team in Philadelphia in my book. So nothing bad about Philly, except I'm, being from Jersey, I say, but I mean, I love Dr. J. I was a basketball player growing up in high school, and, Dr. J was it. I'm that old.
Oh, yeah.
He was a star when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And I just love the Sixers. And you're now you've been tasked with designing some strategy and helping with culture there.
That's right.
So what's kind of your vision there?
Well, it's along the lines of what we talked about. It's surfacing what matters to you, and then making decisions based on your values, right? And the part of culture is that's not defined from the top down. A leader doesn't say this is going to be our culture. It's everyone has to buy in, has to define it, has to live it. If a leader says this is our culture and nobody else engages in that culture, that's not your culture. And so we're going through a series of exercises that help people, define what it means to be a 76er, what it means to have championship DNA. What are you willing to give up to be a champion? And why does that matter to you, to the city, to everything, to your teammates? And so in a culture effort, it's really about making explicit what matters to you, and then ensuring that your decision process and your decisions are tied to what you believe in. Culture is really about how people make decisions when nobody's watching. It's what they expect is rewarded and what they expect is punished as a group. What are you going to accept? And what are you going to champion? So, what hero stories do you tell?
So you mentioned some exercises. Is there maybe something that our listeners could do? An exercise. I think about doing push-ups, and I don't know if that's really what you're doing. When you say exercise, is there something specific you could share that helps to create that vision of culture that you're doing?
I think these are adapted from my experience. I talked to other SEALs who were doing culture efforts with other professional sports organizations.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And really, it's when I say exercise, it's a discussion prompt, and then a discussion with people about what matters to them, and whether you're talking about assessment and selection and who you hire, whether you're talking about what it means to be a teammate or a member of organization X. So like I said, what does it mean to be a 76er? And who in your career exemplified that? And who was a horrible example of that? And when you make the culture alive and use examples. And I had a boss at the White House. We worked at the White House military office, and he was really big on hero stories, right? We defined our culture, and then every week, every 2 weeks at the department head meeting, the department heads would come in and they would tell a hero story about somebody in the organization that exemplified one of our values. And it was the most energizing, exciting part of the week to hear about these phenomenal Americans who are all about presidential service and stewardship and taking care of teammates. And so, that's how I think you bring the culture alive.
Okay. Now that's exactly what I was hoping for, is it's that open communications, then be able to talk about those things, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like.
Yeah.
And I love the hero story. I mean, somebody could take that, implement that in a second. So in your organization, anyone's organization, if you're listening, talk about who did something great this week.
And how's it tied to your culture?
Yeah, that tied back to it. What a great, because that comes back to mindset. And I think mindset is what sets companies and leaders apart. Having the right mindset. And that sets good ones from bad ones, good ones from, or the great ones from just good ones, good leaders. So when you're leading the teams, and I mean, you ended up as what, 06, is it? Captain.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
So as an 06, right? But you started off as like an 01.
That's right.
Yeah. You don't just get out of college, you go, you're the captain now. No, you had to go through the mud. You had to go through buds. You had to do all that tough stuff that we all see on TV and only very few get to go through. So what mindset, and from the guys that I know that I've talked to that have been through buds, been through on the teams, they said it really isn't the physical side as much. That was physical, don't get me wrong, but it's incredibly physical, but it's really where your head's at. The mindset, because if you tell yourself you're defeated, you are defeated. And I think that lends itself to anything in business. If you're not going to sales, if you tell yourself I'm not going to get that deal, you're right. You're not. You're probably going to do something that will blow the deal for you. If you're not going to get this person to get things done, I don't think they can get them to get it done. Well, you probably won't. You'll sabotage yourself. So what mindset did you use while coming through up through the ranks and in leading the SEALs team to help to keep them on task and them on point? What kind of mindset?
There's, I think the mindset begins in SEAL training, right? So in BUDS, I went back and visited my centennial class. So 100 classes after I graduated, I went back and did a little mentoring, and it's exactly what you talked about. What's your self-talk? How, what mindset and what conversation are you having with yourself? Mm-hmm. And if you're in the middle of BUDS, Hell Week starts out Sunday night and goes to Friday, and it's just a soul-crushing, endless events of physical activity with very little sleep, rest. You're cold, wet, and tired. And if your self-talk is about how awful it is, you're never going to make it. Your self-talk has to be about getting through the next event, what you're focused on right now. You can't borrow trouble from the future, and you have to believe in your teammates and take care of your teammates. So to me, the bottom line on the mindset that matters is whether you have an inward mindset that is focused on yourself, right? Whether that's about credit and avoiding blame or being the hero, or if you have an outward mindset that is focused on the mission and your teammates. And that carries you so far and brings people around you in a unifying way, where if it's all about you, it doesn't take people long to sniff that out. They're not going to follow
the outward
like
mindset.
That.
I love the outward mindset. Matter of fact, that's where you were brought to my attention was through something you did on the book, The Outward Mindset, because two of my favorite books in the world, and I used them at the Emerging Leaders Academy. Yeah. We bookend the academy. It's a 3-year program we take these folks through, and I open it up at leadership and self-deception. And I'm going to tell you this, when I read that book 10, 12 years ago when it first came out, It transformed the way I started thinking about myself, about my business, about my wife, about my life, my kids, all of that. And I make them read that book, and usually it's a class of 25 or 30 people, and then they have to debrief it to me. And I've got folks that come back after reading Leadership and Self-Deception and go, I've been in the box all the time. I can't believe I've been in the box. And those that are listening, read the book. You'll get what it means by the box. I know Rob knows what that means by being in the box. And then we close it out with the outward mindset. So great set of, bookend books to how do you do that? How do you think about the team and not yourself? How do you give away the credit, not take the credit? I love that. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a quick story. My daughter, I've got 2 daughters, and my youngest was the youngest general manager in the history of the company, a restaurant that she runs. So she's a player, 25 years old, and she's running a multi-million-dollar restaurant. Yeah. And she's struggling with people. At 22, 23, your interpersonal skills haven't quite developed in depth as they will at a 50, 60-year-old person, right? So I said, here, read this book. I gave her Leadership and Self-Deception. She says, I'm not a reader, Daddy. Would you do this for me? I said, look, just read the first 50 pages, because that's the first key section. I said, read the first 50 pages, and I'll take you to lunch, and we'll talk about it. It's good when your daughter has her own built-in coach for you, right? And so she read it. She came back. We go to lunch, and she says, Daddy, I hate you. I'm like, what? What did I do? She walks in and goes, I just hate you. I said, what? She said, I read that book, those first 50 pages. I hate you. You were right. So, it's the beauty of changing minds like that.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing, I'm a big fan of the Arbiter Institute, who wrote those books and does outward mindset seminars. But, when you run a seminar, and I've been running outward mindset seminars at the 76ers, and there's always a handful of people who love the book and want to give it to the person who has a really big problem about being in the box. And the point is, this isn't a tool that you apply to others. It's the tool that you apply to yourself.
That's right.
And that's the key. When the part about leadership and self-deception to me is that the deception is that you're not part of the problem. That your hands aren't dirty and that you can't do something to fix the issue, right? Yeah. And so that applies so much in the teams where you've got very strong-willed elite performers, and so the confidence can be all-consuming, but when you marry that in harmony with humility, which is what the teams are about, you have an ability to examine yourself and the organization in a way that leads to fantastic improvement and elimination of errors. So, after every SEAL mission, you're doing after action review, what went right and what went wrong. And it can be brutal and nitpicky, but it's about what are you willing to do to be excellent? And so you have to examine yourself before you examine others.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I just finished Dan Crenshaw's book, and that was one of the points he said. He says, we were brutal to each other. After action stuff, he says, we were brutal. We were almost vicious to each other in our nitpicky, you could have stepped here better. But you're exactly right. That's how you get better. And I think it relates back to basketball. You should have been on the point there instead of in the corner. At this point, I'm going to come down the lane, and you should have come up 2 steps, and that would have opened up the lane for me. So that's a great way to have mindset change at all levels. Same with a business. We see this coming here. Let's go back and do an after a sales. I ran sales teams for years and years, and we would always do post-sale. Pre-call planning is always good because you want to know what you want to get out of it. But what did you do? Did you close the deal? Did you move the sale forward? Because not every sales call is going to result in a closed deal. It may move you towards the end zone, but it may not close the deal. We always did after call reports. What happened? Let's take a look at it. Now, I wasn't too nitpicky. I don't want to make my folks cry, but you don't want any crying babies.
But it's can be so frustrating to somebody that's not used to that. To, look, we're trying so hard, we've done so well, and you're never happy. It's always something with you if you're trying to get better, and it's like an NBA player or any sports athlete who is getting critiqued on their performance, and they may have just crushed it, right? You can get better even when you're elite, when you're the best, but it's the small things that matter, and you can't get frustrated with talking about how you get better.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Kobe, God rest his soul, he was one of those legendary guys that even after a game would go back and put 500 shots in. Boom, I got to get better. Even if they had, like you said, they crushed the game, they win. He comes back with 47 points. He goes, I could have got 49. I could have gotten 50 if I just done this. Yeah. So,
but I would say there's I return back to harmony a lot. I don't believe in balance, right? Growing up in the military, home life balance doesn't exist, right? I mean, you're committed, and you make some hard decisions to leave your family over and over and over again. But you can find harmony where when it's time to focus on one thing, you're focused on the family. So to me, the harmony is about having a drive to improve and not being an obsessive micromanager, somebody who can't celebrate every win because they're too focused on the small stuff to improve. So you got to find the harmony in that of what's going to make you better, and how do you celebrate the great stuff? It's not one or the other, right?
I think you're right. It's a combination. And in coaching, executive coaching, for years, the term life balance was used. And you're absolutely right. I call BS on that one. Or bull hockey, right? Because I want to keep it clean. But it's BS. There is no life balance, true balance. If you tried to stand in balance on one foot, how long could you do it? Maybe a little bit, but sooner or later you're going to do this. Or I use a unicycle example. Can you ride a unicycle? I can't.
No, it's exhausting to try to find balance. You got to find the harmony.
But you notice somebody. Yeah. I've got a friend. He's a national speaker, and he can ride a unicycle and juggle knives like swords and stuff. So he's juggling these swords, riding a unicycle, but he's never stopping moving. He's always moving. So there's not really balance. He just isn't falling down. I call it rhythm. He's found his rhythm. And that's, I'm guess when you're deployed, you're finding that with your family, you're leaving your family behind. It's a rhythm. You're in and you're out. Because like I said, my family is military. My brother was a career officer, and he would go out and he would come back. He would go out, deploy, and he would come back. And it was that balance. It was that rhythm that when Dad's home, here's this rhythm. Here, Dad's out, it's this rhythm. So, So community's powerful. We talked about mindset, but community, I think, is one of the most powerful things when you're trying to build a community and a culture at the 76ers right now. What are your steps to keep and build community in an organizations, and what can a business leader do? What can they and should they do to build that community in their organization?
Yeah. So, I returned back to SEAL training, where it's a crucible of our community, and what we built is a community that has a touchstone in shared suffering, right? Whether it's Hell Week, every SEAL knows that every other SEAL went through Hell Week.
Yep.
And certainly I'm not suggesting that, every business leader find a way to torture the people that work for him. But I think we have a unique opportunity in this pandemic where we're all going through something, right?
Sure.
So this is a great opportunity to build community around a shared struggle. And whether that's, a business that's fighting for its survival in an economic downturn because of COVID, or if it's just trying to keep people healthy and focused and psychologically and emotionally engaged in a time of separation, this is a great opportunity to pull people together because they're sharing in something. And so community is about shared goals. It's about shared suffering. It's about shared support. And I think you have to find those opportunities and build them in, be intentful and intentional on how you create opportunities to build that community. And the other part of community is psychological safety, right? I'm safe within my tribe, and a sense of contribution. Not only am I safe without my tribe, but I'm contributing to the community good. And to me, that's what being a community member is. You're in it for them and they're in it for you, and you have a shared purpose.
That's great advice for any business owner or anybody at any time. So thanks for sharing that. So I want to be conscious of your time. I know you got a lot of stuff. You got a boss that you're getting ready to play the Magic tonight, I believe.
That's right.
So you're going to be in the heat of that. So to wrap up, just so we don't use too much of your time, couple of quick questions. I have a couple. What title are you most proud to hold? Now, you've got a bunch of titles. You're working on your PhD. You're a PhD candidate, so we can call you doctor now.
Yeah,
SEAL,
I just finished.
Hall of
That's
Fame,
great.
Captain. I mean, what title are you most proud to hold?
Yeah, so without a doubt, in 1994, I came home from a deployment and was immediately thrown into a separation, followed by a divorce. And then a few months later, I became a single parent to my 3 kids who were 6, 5, and 3. And that was both the greatest experience in my life and the greatest shaper of my life, to be responsible for those 3 wonderful human beings. And so my greatest title that I'm most proud of is just simply father.
That's awesome. I love that. I was going to do the happy dance, because I would say that, I'm the same way. We have a similar mindset. I've got a lot of stuff, and I tell people, here's what I've done. Here's written a couple books, blah blah blah. And I said, you know what? I've got 2 beautiful daughters. I've got 2 beautiful grandchildren, and I'm just blessed to be their dad. And it's dad.
Yeah.
That's it. So excellent. So okay, boom. Here's something. Anything you want to promote for yourself going on? Shout out to anybody.
Yeah, a couple of shout outs to 2 great 501 Charlie nonprofit organizations. I'm with the 76ers because of a phenomenal transition institute called the Honor Foundation. The Honor Foundation helps America's finest special operations forces transition from a military career into the private sector. And so THF, or the Honor Foundation, is a great bridge. It's an executive transition course. They do phenomenal work with just top-notch professors from Harvard and Stanford and business leaders that really take a SEAL who, for 30 years or 20 years or 7 years, put it on the line for the nation. And I tell you, transition is scary. You're leaving your tribe, you're leaving your community, and the Honor Foundation does a phenomenal job of helping those guys continue to contribute to the world in a next career. And the other nonprofit is called One More Wave. These guys do phenomenal work. I'm right now in my home in San Diego, California. They do wonderful work in San Diego. It's a veterans organization that does 2 things. They get together and surf as a way to address PTSD, traumatic brain injury, and building community is for veterans. But they also design and build custom surfboards and paddle boards for wounded warriors. And so to see amputees and guys who have disabilities from war get out there in the surf and just connect with being an athlete and being an active person is phenomenal therapy. And so One More Wave is just a fantastic organization. Look it up and support it. It's one of the best.
We will. We'll have those strolling below, folks. You can look down right below. We'll have links in the bios. We'll have links for both of these foundation. That's amazing. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. And I'd be remiss if I didn't catch you on Coach Rick's Bald Truth questions. I always have these. I ask every one of my guests this. And we've heard a lot about you and amazing career, good work that you're doing all the way around. But here's some questions that I think are going to uncover you a little bit. And I know you don't know they're coming. 3 quick questions. I promise you, quick and easy. So here it is. You're holding a dinner party for 6. Yourself is 1. So you can invite 5 people. And here's the caveat. You can invite anybody in all of history, alive or dead, up to this moment. Who do you invite and why?
Yeah, 5 people. The first one is my better half. You know, I would never want to. I've spent a lifetime experiencing amazing, wonderful things. You know, whether it's deployed or overseas or away from her, and wanting to turn to her and share an experience. So every opportunity I have to be with her is golden. So she's at the dinner party and she's not working it.
Good.
Which she's a phenomenal host. So that's number 1. I have 4 left. I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown. She's a great writer and researcher, really about vulnerability and courage. So it would be fascinating to spend a dinner with Brene, and then with 3 left, I think I would go with Teddy Roosevelt. Both my son and I are huge fans. My son's a park ranger in San Diego County, so he's tied to the outdoors, and you know what a great leader and outdoorsman in Teddy Roosevelt. That would be fun to hear and engage with him.
Okay.
You
got 2 more.
The last 2 would be I think Martin Luther King. You know, we at the 76ers and around the world, we're right. The players are incredibly focused on social justice, diversity, inclusion, and equity, and to be able to talk to him about his struggles and where we are today would be fascinating. And then the last one would that's tough, you know, when you're down to the last cut. But I think that that would be Winston Churchill. I'm a huge fan of his writing and the diligence that he put into both speaking and writing, and what a character.
Excellent. Good choices all the way around. I love that. And this is always fun because it always kind of opens up, makes you think,
yeah,
where am I? And
yeah.
It makes you never see it coming. So here's number 2. An article's being written about you after you're gone. We all have an expiration date. We know that. After you're gone, articles being written about you. What's the title? Headline.
Yeah,
title.
It's hard, you know, from a humility perspective for anybody to look back on their life and try to put a tag on it. But from an aspirational perspective, if I had the title, you know, the obituary or the article, I think it would be something like SEAL, Mind, Body, Soul. And I take this from my better half, who when we look at people who are enduring great suffering or challenge, her comment is, man, they've got a spine of steel. And, you know, to have that backbone and the grit and not only apply it, you know, to physical challenges, but mind, body, spirit, to build yourself up so that you can endure and excel is really what, you know, what I hope I'm known for and what I strive to be.
Excellent. Thank you. Final one. What do you do each morning to set yourself up for success?
Well, it starts the night before, right? With sleep, it's so critical, and I think it's military guys and gals are suffer from a career of sleep deprivation.
Sure.
And that changes your body. It changes your blood chemistry, and it affects you. And so as I was retiring, you do your retirement physicals. I was hooked up with a fantastic neurologist. We've all been knocked in the head a few too many times. And he said, look, the best thing for your brain health is sleep. Diet, and keep it engaged. And so I am very focused on how much sleep I get, and then when I get up, it's taken just a few minutes to center myself on being the best I can be.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome stuff. Well, Rob, I thank you for spending time with us today. This has been engaging, fun, enlightening, I will tell you as well. I learned some stuff as well. So I appreciate you sharing your vision, your thoughts, and your ideas with not just me, but our listeners as well. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Rick. Great pleasure.
It's been a great pleasure. Folks, you've been listening to The Bald Truth with Coach Rick of the Peak Performance Group, the company that helps people and organizations reach their potential. If you're looking for a way to grow your organization, whether it's through sales or strategic direction, the Peak Performance Group, our coaches can help you grow with our proven business acceleration process. You can call us at 817-748-7425 or get on that World Wide Web and visit us at www.mypotentialplus.com, and we'll connect you with the right coach for you. Remember, subscribe and like below. We're available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, YouTube video. Hit the like and subscribe to get every single episode. Folks, I'm Coach Rick, and that's The Bald Truth.